Hello everyone, welcome to the final session of Bricks at Home 2021. My name is Graham Hancock, I'm the editor of Blocks magazine and I have had a fantastic 2 days hanging out here. This event has been put together by Brick Alley and London AFOLs. A massive thank you on behalf of everyone to Richard Carter, Kaz Mockett and Matt Bailey who have made this event happen. We've seen dozens of models, we've heard from the LEGO Ideas Design Manager, we've enjoyed several build activities and had a chance to share the LEGO love. Watch out for an email after the event so that you can vote for your favourite mock from the weekend. The merchandise store will be open until Tuesday, so don't forget to go to bricksathome.org/merchandise if you haven't already. Our final session is designing LEGO models for a living. If you have any questions for the presenters, please put them in the chat and start them with 3 question marks so they're easy for us to find. And once we've had a good look at the mock or once we've had a good tour, we'll then take some questions. So first up, we've got Paul Hetherington, who is going to give us a tour of his LEGO room. Hello, Paul.
Hello, how are you guys doing?
We're great, how are you?
Oh, very good. It's the morning here. I just woke up. It's about 8 a.m. here in Vancouver, Canada. But yeah,
early for us.
Yeah. Well, I'm Paul, and basically I've been building and collecting with LEGO for about 30 years. And in the last 2 years or so, I've actually given up my day job and I've been doing LEGO commissions and creating or selling my LEGO art for a living. Over the past 10 years, I've created a few models just to give you guys an idea of the type of stuff I do. This is Unchain My Heart. So these are some of the larger models that I don't have here right now. This is the Joker house. This was a popular YouTube video a while back. And this was Poseidon from about 10 years ago. So this is the type of stuff that I do. And I'm actually from Slough. I was born in England. This is me when I was, gosh, about 4 in my little bungalow in Slough, which I understand is a bit of a hub for LEGO with Legoland and the offices there. So I feel like if my dad hadn't whisked me away to Vancouver, I would know most of you in person and I'd probably be part of the same clubs that you guys are. But let's get in. I'm going to show you some LEGO and you guys can kind of figure out what I do through the next half-hour presentation. So this is the Tijuana Taxi. This is one of my earlier creations. This is one of the first models that I ever took to BrickCon, which was our local convention here for a long time until BrickCan came along. Of course, if I built this today, I would probably use a few different techniques, but this one's a bit of a time capsule. So BrickCon, BrickCan, and Bricks Cascade have been super supportive of my work. And it was kind of through going to these conventions that, you know, I got the confidence and developed the skills to sell my LEGO art. And yeah, these are some of the trophies that I got there. But yeah, so I've been collecting, like I said, for about 30 years. So this is one of the things I love to do when I'm not creating models is track down some fun rare pieces. This is a monkey from 1951. And this one's a little unusual. It's got a Danish State Railways basket on the back. Normally that would have been found on a little yellow wooden truck, but I'm guessing they had a few extras after that production run. So they put one on the back of the monkey there. So one's kind of an interesting variation. But right next to that is a Buffalo Phil's delivery car. So this was one of the models that I did for my first really large commission. Buffalo Phil's is a restaurant located in Wisconsin Dells in the USA. And they actually have train delivered food. And inside the loop of train track that delivers the food to the customers, they wanted a big Lego city to help draw in the customers. So this is an actual car. Unfortunately, I didn't get to drive in it, but it was a lot of fun to recreate in Lego. So you can find most of these pictures of the models I'm going to talk about on my website, which is paulhetheringtonartist.com. Melissa, who's doing the fabulous camera work here, actually helped develop the site over the summer. This is one of the things that we did since COVID's hit. We've had a lot more time to kind of get the online component of our business together. Now, this is one of my older creations again. This is a Fantasia float that I built just for fun. And it uses the Fabuland style figures there from about 2000. And right next to that is one of my new models. This is kind of a teaser for the Doctor Who model that I'm going to show you shortly. This is my mate Dave Dalek. I figured he needed a name. And yeah, I really wanted to try and recreate the shape of a Dalek, which is like, it's simple, but it's also a little bit challenging. The Dalek bumps, the little 2x2 tiles with studs on the back, sort of set the scale for this piece. But I'll be showing you the full Doctor Who model in just a few minutes. Speaking of Dave Shefsick, who now runs Brick Nerd, which is a really cool blog that I want to give a shout out to, made this trophy that I got at one of the Lego conventions. Dave's a pretty awesome guy, and he's assembled a great team for Brick Nerd. So check them out if you haven't already. Then I threw this guy in. I actually got him at the Loplet in Billund in 2019 when I was there. And I just mentioned that because I met Kaz Mockett that day, and we both had shopping baskets full of cool Lego stuff. So hey Kaz, just a quick shout out to you. Then next to that is an older creation. It's so old it uses old grays, but it's based on a Hot Wheels design. Of course, Hot Wheels are similar to Matchbox cars that you have over there in the UK. These are the type of things that I would do for fun, but now, like I said, I'm transitioning into doing these for a living. And next to that are some flowers that I made for Melissa. And just in front of that is the Brick Universe little memento of the 10 shows. We've actually done, gosh, almost 30 shows with them now. They're a traveling show that runs in the US, and I have a lot of models that I display down there. So shout out to Brick Universe. And of course, next to that is a London bus. This is like a 1910 B-type London bus. And I really like the model of the bus, so I figured I would recreate it in Lego. It reminds me of an Airfix kit that I always wanted when I was a kid, but never quite got. And this I built back in 2014 for the 40th anniversary of these homemaker figures. You know, I'm 50, so these were the guys that I grew up with, because when I was really young, we didn't have Lego minifigures as we know them now. So this was my little tribute to my childhood. All right, then if we move up, do you guys remember the Eightfold Designer program that Bricklink did a couple of years ago? This was one of the sets that they ended up making. This is my design, Imagine It, Build It. And basically it is a Lego brick bursting with creativity. The center character represents the Lego builder, and then you've got some space and town and train creations. So this actually got made into a set, and I understand that Lego, now that Lego owns Bricklink, they're rebooting the Eightfold Designer program, and they're using some of the submissions from the Lego Ideas that have already reached 10,000 supporters. Then next to that, I mentioned meeting Kaz in Billund. Melissa and I got to go there. We got invited to the Masterpiece Gallery, where I displayed one of my creations. So these are some souvenirs that I got along the way. That trophy there was made by Stuart Harris. So many thanks to the Lego group for inviting us out. We basically had the best time of our lives. It was my first time getting to go to Legoland Billund, and it's amazing. I can't wait to go back. We were hoping to go back, of course, more recently, but as you know, with the world situation, we're just waiting to travel again. So next up, I have a couple sets that I have for sale in my store. As you can see, these are kind of the same theme as Imagine It, Build It. They show a Lego brick kind of revealing a Lego set. these, of course, are the classic sets that I'm sure you all know. The Alpha 1 rocket base. This one has some working features, the gantry moves, the rocket launches, and you can move the figures in the vehicle around. And then the classic yellow castle next to it has working drawbridge and the little classic horses. So these are for sale at paulhetheringtonartist.com. And yeah, I've got a limited number available. If you guys are interested, I would certainly appreciate your support. Then next to that, I have my new kit that I've just revealed, which is also for sale in the store. This is a Nautilus. A friend of mine commissioned me to make the Nautilus. He's a big fan of 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea. And basically he wanted a movie correct version of the 1954 Nautilus, but he didn't want, like a 2 foot or so long version like most people had built before. So I tried to condense the scale of it and get it into a 12-inch long version. So yeah, I've got a couple of those for sale as well. Then for those of you that go on to the LEGO Ideas platform, a couple of you may recognize this from the Music to Our Ears contest. This was my submission. It didn't end up making the top 10, but it did receive quite a lot of support out there. So hopefully at some point in the future, I will do another LEGO Ideas submission. And this one is called Grease Lightning Jukebox. And it's actually got this feature where if you turn the knob on the grill of the car, the dancers move and the band moves back and forth. And you got Danny Zuko and Sandy from Grease there doing the jive. And it was basically just a lot of fun to condense, the jukebox and the car and the diner, all the imagery of the 1950s that I like so much. All right, then moving over here, this is one of my larger pieces that I did in 2020, just before the pandemic hit. We took this to Bricks Cascade. It's called Tiki Madness, and it has some working features. So Melissa and I really enjoy going to tiki bars on our travels, which we have quite a bit of here on the West Coast. And that's kind of a Captain Morgan type character who's possibly imbibed a little too much rum and he's hallucinating. There's some tiki gods there stirring the straw of his drink, and another one's playing a ukulele, serenading him. Then as you get down into the tiki mug character, he's got crazy eyes and his tongue is moving and he's got a spider on his tongue. My favorite parts usage here was the, I don't even know what they're called. They're like a Technic piece that I use for the teeth. It actually came in some space sets from quite a few years ago, but they make these great crooked teeth. Then, as is kind of typical of my style, I combine minifigures with more sculptural pieces, basically using all the elements that I can to tell stories. Now, since we're in Canada, Canadian content regulations require that there is at least some Canadian content in any of our programming. So I'd like to present Sergeant Bricks. Sergeant Bricks just turned 18. I built him back in 2002. And as you can see, he's just getting into facial hair. And yeah, he's been the mascot of the Vancouver Lego Club, which I'm a member for many years. He shows up at train shows once in a while to help guide people over to where the Lego trains are. But all right, it is basically time for the big reveal of the Doctor Who MOC. So this one, I'm trying something new. I'm actually going to offer these for sale. And yeah, this is it.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's kind of a tribute to Doctor Who. Of course, I went with the 12th Doctor because, from the LEGO Ideas set, those are the minifigures that were available. Oh, just a word of advice, nobody blink right now. There is a weeping angel on the screen. So please keep your eyes open. You just never know what's going to happen with those guys. So yeah, there's the console room. I had a lot of fun trying to use some of the new parts and yeah, trying to recreate the console room as closely as possible. There's lots of Gallifreyan symbols and bookcases and all the type of things you would find in that particular Doctor's TARDIS. So that the idea I wanted to get across with this piece was to both show the inside of the TARDIS as well as the outside. And I hopefully achieved that by having the TARDIS bursting out of the time travel mechanism. So you're kind of seeing the inside and outside view, and you've got references to the police box there. And yeah, then I put initially I wanted sort of a space backdrop behind the TARDIS, but that didn't really work out to my satisfaction. So I went with the Union Jack. And I feel that gave the piece kind of a mod type feel. I'm a big fan of the Who, and I love, the 1960s kind of clean lines of the mod movement. So yeah, it's got a sort of pop art feel, I think. Yeah, we've got up in our store. We're going to sell copies of this. Basically, I would assemble the piece in subsections, and then there would be some assembly required, but basically you put the pieces together. And yeah, that is the direction that I'm going right now with the Lego art. And until we can get back doing shows and all that good stuff. So next up, oh, you're going to find pictures of that. I'm going to post pictures of this one and the Scooby-Doo one I'll show you in a minute online in a couple hours, so people can find it hopefully all over the social media. So here's the history section. These are models that the Billund Model Shop used to make back in the 1970s. Once again, these are kind of fun to collect. They're a little bit hard to come across, but when you do, they're pretty cool. There's a mouse boot there. I'm kind of curious on the backstory of this one because it has features mice with backpacks flying. I'm not quite sure why they have backpacks. But maybe it's because James Bond was popular in the 70s and they combined, these are like James Bond mice. I'm really not sure. I had to do a bit of restoration on this. The mouse on top of the boot is actually my best guess at what he should have looked like. Every version of this that I've seen was missing the mice. So I think I've got it basically as close as it was back in the day.
Paul, Richard asks if that model's glued.
Oh yes, they are glued. Yeah, so these are models that they would have sent out to toy stores back in the 70s to help this, advertise Lego. This is obviously stuff that came out before the minifigures. So I know there's a few collectors out there that, collect this stuff. I'm always jealous when I see all the European collectors that have these amazing collections, but I've done okay here in Canada, tracking down a few of them.
Yeah.
But yeah, next we've got Julius and Clancy. This is another model that I'm going to be offering for sale. I'm going to sell copies of this. And for you, if you're familiar with Paul Frank, you know that Julius the monkey is sort of the mascot for that line. And then you've got Clancy, the world's smallest giraffe, next to him. This actually reminds me of a time when I was 9. I spent the summer in the UK in near Datchet, where my grandparents lived, and we went to the Windsor Safari Park, which of course is now Legoland. And we actually have some pictures of us driving through there, and we have monkeys on our hood, basically trying to rip our windshield wipers off. So that was always a highlight of going through the Great Park before it got turned into Legoland. Yeah, next up, we're going to go into the Halloween section. So this is kind of an older creation. It's called Turns at Midnight, and it's motorized. I have a history of motorizing some of my creations. But the backstory on this I came up with was, I built this around the same time that the first carousel set came out. And at the time I was trying to not buy as much Lego as I had been. So my solution was to build my own version of the carousel and, be good and save my money and not buy the set, which of course I regret now because it's gone way up in value. And so now I always buy Lego instead. But yeah, the backstory is this is on a side street in Paris. and it only turns at midnight. Humans don't know about this. It's only for ghouls and ghosts and goblins, and skeletons are not wise to show up here, because if they do, their bones will get turned into decoration. So it's kind of a fun story behind that one. All right, then next up, I have another big reveal. This is
Oh,
Scooby-Doo.
wow.
Yeah, so as you can see, I'm kind of getting into this poster style where I combine elements and get the logos of the franchise on there. So this is another one that's for sale in my store. So, you know, these are obviously larger creations. I believe this one has about 8,000 pieces in it. You can see the gang there, Scooby. Scooby has just realized that there is a zombie behind them. And the gang don't know that yet, but I'm sure they're gonna have lots of fun adventures and figure out who is behind all the hijinks in the haunted house there. But yeah, I love architecture. So my starting point for many of my creations is, you know, my desire to make super cool architecture out of Lego bricks. And yeah, and then combine scales. I've got the ghost, Scooby-Doo style ghost coming out of the top there. He's got chains on his arms, and yeah. And then one of my favorite details is actually using 1x2 clear plates to signify stars in the night sky.
That's really nice and subtle, isn't it?
Yeah, it works. Like if you look up closely, it kind of takes you into the scene. And then you got the moon behind the ghost there. Of course, it's just Mr. Jenkins dressed up as a ghost. Yeah, all right, let's go into the engine room, and I will show you where all the magic happens. So we're actually not in a house, we're in a little apartment style townhouse. So it's about 1,000 square feet. And of course, my Lego room isn't really big enough, but this is where all these creations have been built over the last 20 years or so. It's a bit of a mess right now. I'm currently working on another Joker themed creation. This is going to be a similar style to the poster board ones that you've just seen. But yeah, basically this is going to be Joker's ice cream factory, and there's going to be all kinds of hijinks, kind of in the spirit of my Joker's Funhouse and my Gotham Theater Showdown creation. For those of you that like ice cream, I would not recommend eating this ice cream. A, because it's Lego, and B, because it's probably very suspicious. Who knows what would happen if you took a lick. Yeah, basically, as most people do with larger collections, I sort by piece type. I've got all my drawers here with all the different elements. It's basically a system that has expanded over time as Lego keeps making more elements, but my room doesn't get any bigger. So it's got a bit of a system, but then it's also kind of chaotic as well. Then quickly, I'll show you just around here. So as you guys probably know, I'm into the Lego history, and these are more Lego store models, except these are not official glued ones. These are recreations. And I basically do these for fun. I don't really take pictures of them. So you guys are the first ones that are seeing that I even have these. But I like to decorate my Lego room with stuff that I didn't build once in a while. And then I've got a couple more here. So these are pictures that I saw online of models that I really liked and would have loved to have bought, but of course you can't buy them unless you get super lucky. And so yeah, I just recreated them, and I'm sure most of you will recognize the Inside Tour sets. These are, once again, kind of replicas of that. You can buy reproduction stickers online. And thankfully the stickers are slightly different than the official set, so you can always tell a reproduction, which is a good thing. But yeah. Then I do have one more store model. This is an official store model to show you. And once again, this one's from about 1975. And
Oh, wow. That's cool.
yeah, this one's really cool. Let's see, I'm just gonna plug it in. So yeah, it still has a working motor in it. Lego apparently did a steamboat theme for their 1975 toy fair. And from what I can tell, they made probably about 100 copies of this. I don't know, 50 to 100 copies of this, and sent them out to toy stores in America to kind of introduce this new minifigure that they came out with. Of course, we didn't really know it was armless at the time because we hadn't seen what the minifigure would become. But yeah, it's pretty cool. And I did actually have a duplicate that I came across here, but I ended up selling it to Mini Billand in the Netherlands, which is a place I would love to go. And I hope that they're still doing okay through this pandemic. Because when we can travel again, that's my dream, to go there and see all their Lego history. They have a pretty amazing collection from what I can see online. But yeah, that's about the tour.
Well, wow, thank you so much for giving us that tour, Paul. Is amazing. Like, there's so much to ask you about.
Yeah, I hope it wasn't, it's kind of overload. Hopefully it was just entertaining.
And it makes everyone feel better about their Lego room or Lego house.
Oh, sorry?
It makes everyone feel better when they see someone else's Lego house or Lego room about theirs and about their houses.
Oh, exactly. Yeah, it's great that's what I love about, like, the pandemic's kind of brought this Lego house tour thing in, and you get to see where people live, because you used to see them in person, but now you get to learn a little bit more about them, that's been one of the side benefits, I think, of going online.
So Kaz asks, do you sell instructions or just the complete kits?
I'm going to start selling instructions and get a bit more into that. Currently, I'm just selling the kits, but pretty much once the kits sell out, I'll transition in and just sell copies of the instructions. That basically sell the digital file. I make all my instructions in Studio, and yeah, it turns out it's quite a nice result. As I'm learning, there's a bit of an art to making good instructions, and I'm enjoying the process of sequencing the model and trying to make it as enjoyable a build as I can.
Matthew's got an interesting question. How many parts do you have? Oh
gosh, well, probably a couple million. That's the downside to having the small Lego studio. This is maybe a quarter, if that, of what all the bricks that I do actually have. In here, I try and keep all the bricks that I will use, immediately, but there's overflow, and there's overflow of the overflow. That's all in storage, unfortunately. So sometimes when I'm building, I got to get in my car and drive across town to get some bricks. So yeah, probably, I'm guessing a couple million.
And along a similar line, LD Brickmaster asks, how many minifigures do you own?
Probably a couple thousand, I'm guessing. I've been collecting for 30 years, so every year, as we do, we spend money on Lego, and I was around for the beginning of the Lego collectible minifigures, so I got into those, when they came out, so I didn't have to pay all the crazy money to get them. But yeah, I definitely don't have every minifigure by any means, but decent thousands.
And Jennifer asks, what has been your favorite model to build?
Oh, great question. I'm going to say the steampunk robot, Unchain My Heart, just because it incorporates bionicle elements along with the system brick. I got to use all the strange little silver parts and gold parts that normally you get in the set, but you're not quite sure what to do with. I basically played around with those and made all these little sub-assemblies that look somewhat robotic. And then as I was building the structure of the robot, I would kind of hold up the different parts to see, where they would fit in the robot. And I really enjoyed that process.
So HK asks, are you building Lego models full time? And what takes up most of your time? Designing the models, set designs or commissions? So I think that might mean like the process of building them or kind of setting up the commissions.
Oh, probably the building right now. You know, normally before the pandemic, most of my time was spent going to Lego shows. We'd probably do about 15 or 20 shows a year around Canada and the US. And we were just getting into coming to some of the European shows. But of course, that's been shut down for now. So at this point, we're focusing more on like stuff that we can sell online. So right now I'm more in the design phase of it, but in the future, I'll be spending more time probably online, sort of trying to promote the business and get the word of mouth out there about my creations.
What was the trickiest thing in putting the Scooby-Doo build together? Because that had like lots of crazy angles on the house, and then also the kind of dimensional poster to it as well.
Right. Gosh, well, initially the color palette, it took me a while to come up with the colors for the house. The magic ingredient seemed to be the light gray trim on the house. Initially, I thought it might be black or dark gray. But once you choose a color that has a suitable assortment of parts, which light gray did, the fun for me is building the architecture. I mean, there was a lot of tricky parts. There was some, like you said, strange angles of attaching the house at a 45-degree angle to the back. Probably the part I struggled with the most and had the most iterations of was the Scooby-Doo logo. That has all sorts of crazy angles. It's all legal connections, but that one took me the longest to figure out. It was actually a bit frustrating at times, but when you persevere, it's pretty rewarding to see the final product.
Do you have a personal favorite subject matter to build in?
Gosh, I mean, architecture is just a broad theme, anything with a building in it. I'm so all over the place. People often comment that they're surprised that all these different creations that I've done come out of one brain. But the Joker is a personal favorite of mine, so I'm looking forward to getting back into Jokerland. I always build from the perspective of the Joker as opposed to Batman. I like the crazy colors and getting a little bit, throwing weird ideas in there. So yeah, I'm going to say the Joker and steampunk and architecture.
Do we have any last questions for Paul? If so, please pop them in the chat now. What are you working on next, Paul? Is it that Joker build that we saw a little bit of?
Yeah, this Joker factory. Kind of in the spirit of the Joker from the Lego movie. I just want it to be fun and colorful. And basically here I've been using what I call the Mr. and Mrs. Potato Head approach, where you make little sub pieces and you hold them up against the model to kind of see what the piece could look like. And I guess I have a good natural instinct for when something's right or not quite right. I don't necessarily see the full finished vision, but as I proceed, I can kind of tell, if I like the direction it's going in or not. I kind of liken it to an archaeological dig where you're sort of dusting away and slowly revealing what I'm actually building.
So Kaz says, say hi to Melissa from me.
Yeah, Melissa's right here. Hey, Kaz.
And Jennifer asks, what is the largest build that you have done?
Oh, good question. That would be the Buffalo Phil's Brick City. You can find pictures of that on my website, paulhetheringtonartist.com. And it took about 6 months to build and measured, I guess about 10 feet by 8 feet and was 4 feet wide or 4 feet high. And it featured 2 loops of train track going around it and fully light, all the buildings lit up. And
oh, wow.
Yeah, It was pretty big. It took up, Melissa had to go without a living room that summer as I was building it all over the living room floor.
LD Brickmaster asks, how do you dust your Lego?
Oh, well, basically this, paintbrush. We went over everything and dusted it before this. I find like every 3 months or so you have to dust, and it's just a bit of blowing on it and a bit of dusting. I've tried the air cans that you use for cleaning computer keyboards, but I don't know, they don't seem to last that long. Or I found this is probably the most effective. Awesome.
Thank you so much, Paul, for giving us the tour and showing us the incredible things that you've been building. The Doctor Who and Scooby Doo are really, really cool.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, you guys got the sneak peek. I'll be debuting those online over the next week or so. But no, thank you so much for this opportunity, and hopefully we can all meet in person, in the next year or so.
Roll on in-person shows again. We can't wait for that.
Yes.
Well, thank you so much. And now we're going to have a chat with
Thanks,
Steve
Paul.
Mays and see what he's been up to.
Hello.
Hey, Steve, how are you?
I'm fine. How are you?
Yeah, good, thank you.
I just want to say hi to Paul. I've not met him before, but I dropped him a line the other day because I noticed he's in Vancouver. I think we're both living the dream job-wise, but I always had a hankering to live in Vancouver when I was just after I left university. It never happened, so he wins on that count.
It's a ridiculously cool-looking city, isn't it?
Yeah, I've been we've got family there, and we were due to go last summer, but obviously that got cancelled. So I'm hoping that we'll be over there next summer. Maybe I might have to call around on Paul.
Definitely, we've got to make the most of it when we can travel again and make those connections.
Yeah.
So, what's your latest project, Steve? What have you been up to in lockdown?
Well, I must admit, I'm not. I'm glad Paul went first because I've not really given this a lot of thought, I'm afraid. I'm in my studio. So, do you want me to do a similar kind of tour? And I'll cover
whatever works for you. I mean, it looks like it's nice and bright in there, so we're going to be able to see what you've got, so you can take us around or put stuff in front of us, whichever way works for you.
Yeah, I've been doing a bit of rearranging while Paul was on, bringing stuff into shot, so I can show you. It's only me here, so I haven't got someone holding the camera, so it might not be quite as slick as well. But what was fascinating about that was we're obviously both making a living from Lego now, and I'll give you a bit of a history of how I got to this point, but it's very different from Paul's. And I think that's the thing about this very niche business of building Lego models is everyone does it in a slightly different way. So my background was I didn't carry on playing with Lego after after probably about 13 or 14. And I got back into it in 2012. So I had a long gap, and I still wouldn't call myself a collector. So when people ask me, "Oh, how much Lego have you got?" It's not that impressive. I buy Lego now for the projects that I'm doing. So the idea of 2 million bricks, that's crazy. I don't know how many I've got, but it's nowhere near that amount. And I was a photographer, an architectural photographer for 10 years before rediscovering Lego. So my angle on it was very much architecture exclusively. My angle was I could continue to be a photographer, and I could maybe offer to build the buildings that architects are developing out of Lego as a little extra sideline. And that was sort of back in 2012 to 2013. And I had no expectation that it could possibly be a full-time business. But that's what happened. I think there's a lot of photographers out there, but not so many Lego builders. So it has become a full-time job, but still very much an architectural focus for me, and I don't think it's nearly as fun as what Paul's been showing. All my models are very, I want to get them dead right, the architecture side of it. So we do quite different things, but that's fascinating to me.
And I think that's what makes it so fascinating when we get to see what everyone's doing and what different people are building, is that variation and the different niches that people are able to focus on.
Absolutely. So my studio is a complete mess, but you know, that's how it is. So I don't feel I need to tidy it up particularly. So I will answer your question about what I'm working on, Graham. But if I just go through how it started, is that a good way of doing it?
That sounds perfect. That sounds great.
I'll get onto that. So for me, as I say, it was all the architectural stuff, and a few of the first builds I did were things like, I hope this comes out well on there.
Yeah, we can see that nice and clear.
So this is the Civic Centre in Newcastle. The other thing I should say is I'm very, very localized. I think all my work practically has been the north of England, with a few exceptions. So that most of you probably won't recognise this. It's a town hall in Newcastle, and this is St James's Park, which is the home of Newcastle United Football Club, and that's about a couple of foot wide. It's hard to tell from the picture. And this is the Baltic, although actually that is one I have here. So I'll just spin this one around. This is the Baltic, and this is one I did as a hobby. This is an art gallery in Gateshead. I did this as a hobby in about 2014, and that was kind of really where it started. The only thing I'd done before that was building a model of my house, and that was, in my head, that was a one-off return to my childhood or something, stress release project. And it was another year before I did the Baltic, and that got some interest. So I thought there might be something going on here with Lego builds. And the other thing to say is there aren't many of my builds that I've got left, because it went very quickly for me from a hobby to doing commissions. So there's 3 or 4 builds I've got in the studio that are mine, and all the rest have gone to clients. So there's plenty to show you in here, but all the big ones that I've done. And if you look on my website, which is brickthis.co.uk, you'll see they are very big seagulls, Carl. I've just seen that question. There should be kittiwakes, actually. That's what nests on the Baltic. Yeah, some of the really big models I've done, you know, they're not here, and they're with the clients. But what I will do quickly is I'll just pick up the laptop and I'll try and give you, I don't know how well this is going to work. I'll just hold it up. This is the studio.
That's a nice space.
Yeah, it's perfect for me. I used to work out my loft until about 3 years ago when I got this. So there's also, I'll try and give you a little tour. So if anyone's seen, I've got this rocket model on Lego Ideas at the moment. This is a version of it it's still not quite finished. And I dug this one out. I don't know if Paul's still on. I don't think he is. Maybe he is. I dug this out because he showed his, he had a Grease Lightning model that he showed, and I've done a version of that car.
Oh, fantastic.
It's fallen apart a bit. There's a couple of figures missing from it. I had done that. And if anyone's questioning the chrome pieces, that's the only time I've ever had a piece recoloured, some chrome bits. I did submit that to Lego Ideas because of some arrangement they've already got with Ford, because it's a Ford car. It wasn't accepted. So that just sits in my studio.
That's a shame.
Yeah. Down here, I've got, this is a personal project that started 4 years ago and hardly ever get to move on. The Quayside in Newcastle and Gateshead. And if I ever have half-hour spare, I do a little bit on it. And now, sorry, I'm just carrying my laptop around, but
this is great.
That's you can see behind me, I've got a lot of, I don't buy a lot of sets, but I do tend to buy the modulars, the architecture ones, and there's a few other things there you probably recognise a lot of them. Most of them are official sets. There's a DeLorean. That's not my design. I don't bet some of you have seen the guy, seen that you can buy instructions for that. This is a little model I did for, so most of my projects are for companies, but this was a project for a woman in Germany whose dad has an actual tractor like that and wanted it done as a present. So this is my version, but she's got a copy that she gave to him with instructions. So that was one I did last year, the biggest I've done with instructions. What else we got? So the things I'm working on at the moment, this is a building in Newcastle called the Mining Institute. That's that I'm working on at the moment. beautiful building in the centre of Newcastle. And this isn't a very interesting one at the moment, but I'm working on it. It's a town hall in Gisborough, which is in the northeast of England as well. That'll be a full interior build as well as exterior. So it's going to get more interesting when I start working on the interior. So that's a quick little tour of the studio space. If anyone spotted something that they want me to go back to, I will do at the end. I'm happy to do that. But what's interesting about me doing this little talk at the moment is my business has changed drastically over the past 6 months. Anyone that follows me on Instagram or other social media, so I keep spotting the little comments that come up. I need to try and yes, I've got a lot of tan bricks. What was I saying? Yeah, the pandemic. So this has been a full-time job for me for about 4 or 5 years. The photography stopped. The pandemic hit me massively. The inquiries for big projects basically stopped. Those ones that I showed you were both commissioned before the pandemic, and there's no rush with them because the buildings in question, they're both redevelopment projects in real life, have got slowed down.
Yeah,
kind of been ticking away. So I had all the inquiries for big projects because most of my clients are tourist attractions and galleries and museums, and that just died basically last year. So I had to start looking at what else I could do, and I started doing designing little sets. So much like what Paul seems to have moved into, different topic. I've stuck very much to architecture and the north of England, and it started with me doing a little. So if you know Newcastle and Gateshead, it's a beautiful city, but Lego will never do an official. It's too niche for them to do their architecture set. Sorry, pieces keep falling off this. So I designed this little Newcastle Gateshead set late last year, not really thinking that it might be a new direction, but just because I thought it was a gap. Let's do it, and I'll see what happens. And I only did instructions for it, and I basically shared it on social media and got quite a lot of people buying the instructions. And I thought, well, there could be something here, but I'd held back from doing sets because getting all the pieces in, even for 10 or 20 of something, I just didn't know if the numbers added up as much as anything.
Yeah.
But I thought I'd give it a shot just before Christmas, and had a really great response to that Newcastle Gateshead one. So I sold 20 or 30 in a couple of days from just saying, just to people that followed me. And that has basically been my business the past 4 or 5 months. I've got a new little Shopify site up now that's linked from my main website, where I'm selling instructions for these. I've got what else have I got? I've got Lake District and Liverpool, and I've done a Time Bridge model, which somewhere I'll show you that in a minute. An Angel of the North. This is my Angel of the North. So you can buy that instructions, or you can buy the set. Well, I think I'm out of stock with them. Yes, and football. So the other sub niche within this is football stadiums. So I've done a little version of St James's Park a few years ago, which is this one, and I've done an updated version of that, and Anfield, and I've got a few more coming. And they've been doing really, really well, and I actually love that aspect of it. The smaller scale that I'm working at with them, and the process of designing instructions for them, I find there's just something about that appeals to me. Working out how someone else can follow it step by step. Sorry, I did get some others. Here we go. So this is another one I did, the Blackpool. This is one of my favourite, actually.
Oh wow! That's cool.
So Blackpool Tower and the Big Dipper and a few other little sandcastles and things. So what you get with these is, I did eventually go down the getting them printed route. You get a little instruction booklet with them, and they come in a nice little box set, which are numbered and signed. Because the idea with these is, to be honest, I didn't know if people would pay.
Yeah.
Be perfectly open about it, because obviously people like us, we don't get Lego cheaper than anybody else. We have to buy it in from Bricklink. So this costs £85 for me to sell. Now, a similar sized Lego model wouldn't be that much, although some of the architecture ones are quite expensive.
Yeah.
So I didn't know if people would be willing to pay. So I wanted to make it quite a special thing with the limited number of editions and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And they do seem to appeal. So that's basically completely changed my business. You could count on probably all my fingers and toes the number of clients I'd had over the past 5 years up until 6 months ago, because they were big one-off projects. Someone that would take 6 months. In fact, I'd been working on an exhibition that was due to open just as the pandemic hit. Been working on it for 18 months. Whereas the past 6 months I've had, a couple of hundred customers. So it's changed my business, and hopefully, assuming these big projects come back, hopefully the better, because it's another branch to the business effectively.
And it's amazing that it's on such a different scale. You just touched on acquiring Lego parts, and Matthew was wondering how you get your Lego parts.
Bricklink for 99% of it. Very occasionally I'll find something that for some reason is cheaper to buy directly from Lego. It doesn't happen very often. And when stores were open, we've got a Lego store in the Metro Centre, which is not too far from me. So occasionally from there, but nearly all of it from Bricklink. And it's time consuming. It's time consuming when you're doing a one-off project and you don't really, if you're working on a project over 6 months, you don't necessarily need it very quickly. With putting these sets together and trying to find out the most cost-effective way of putting 20 of these together in a few weeks, it needs a certain sort of patience.
Wrestling with Bricklink definitely does.
Yeah. And quite a lot of stuff.
Oh, sorry, go on, Steve. What were you saying?
I was just going to say quite a lot of stuff coming from Europe as well at the moment, because as Paul touched on, some pieces you have to keep a really close eye on what is available. In fact, somebody on the session before was mentioning the little dark green tiles with clips. I need them for my Tyne Bridge model, but they're like 50p a pound, some of them. So you have to keep, if you can design it, and Bricklink will, the studio software will tell you if it's available in that color, but it doesn't tell you how rare they are, how much you might pay. So you have to keep a real eye on what is actually available. I might be able to put together 20 of these sets for a certain amount, but then there'll be a rare piece that I have used, and I've used up all those that are out there, and I might not be able to do it the next lot for the same price.
Oliver asks if you also sell your instructions on sites like Rebrickable.
I didn't get that far. I think I registered with Rebrickable, and for some reason, I've always had this attitude of I just want to have control of everything, and I thought, it kind of counterintuitively as well, I don't think I could deal with selling lots, because even with the little if you just buy instructions from me, I still send out, I get the little printed tiles. So something like the Blackpool one, I was saying I'll post these out to you anyway. So I was kind of a bit reluctant to sell too many in a way.
Yeah.
And certainly with the box sets, if it really took off to the extent that people that I realized I could sell a few dozen a week, I don't think I could cope with that. Getting the pieces in and stuff, and so I've got a strange situation where I quite like to just tick along with that.
Yeah. And Richard's got a fun question. He wants to know which part shortages on Bricklink can we currently blame you for?
Well, it's often tan, but I've had a bit of a break from that until this project came along. There's all sorts of little things. I'm going to be buying a lot of. So the Tyne Bridge model, I'll just bring that over actually, because I have got it here. Now, if you're questioning why it's on the new IKEA boxes, then it's because I might end up doing a little display at our local IKEA with these models. But this is the Tyne Bridge model that I've designed. So
That's really nice.
So, but the problem with this, as you may know, is dark green. So Bright Bricks did a brilliant model of it a few years ago, much bigger, that was in dark grey. And it's a great model. And there's a reason it's in dark grey is because dark green is a very hard colour to work in. It's a bit more expensive, but more importantly, there aren't many pieces that come in dark green. But I'd set if I'm going to do this, I'm going to do it in dark green because the Tyne Bridge is dark green.
Yeah.
So, and I've just released 15 of these, and I haven't started collecting the bits in. So I'll be buying a lot of dark green up over the next couple of months probably. But I never know what what I'm going to need until I don't design the big models in advance, and you often don't know what you need until you need it.
So do you use any digital tools in the design process, or do you use them later when you've already come up with
With these ones that I'm doing now, I'm starting in Studio, as in the software. I'm designing them in the software first.
Yeah.
Which is a new approach. I don't use the software at all for big projects. I just don't see the point. Actually, it would take almost as long to do it. I just start building from photos and plans. But these ones, because they need instructions, at some point they would have to be done digitally anyway. So I tend to start from that point. And also, it's worked very well with the fact that I have got 2 kids who have been off, and I've tried to homeschool them quite a lot of months out of the past 6 months. They've been homeschooled, but that's something that I can sit at home and do on my laptop, or do it in the evenings when I'm not at the studio.
Yeah.
So it's kind of been necessity as much as anything. So yeah, and then I will build them, because even if it looks perfectly sensible in the software, you still need to know what it looks like when it's actually built, and to test the instructions to make sure someone can follow them.
Can we have a look at the big rocket model again, please?
Yep. Well, it's not the biggest one I've done.
Yeah, there's several scales to this one, aren't there?
Yeah, so I'll just clear a bit of space. I'm not a massive train fan, but I'm a massive fan of the rocket, and I built a much bigger version. I haven't got any pictures. That's about 1.6 meters long, that is on display at the Centre for Life in Newcastle. There's pictures of it on my website. And as I was doing that, I thought it'd be nice to do one that could go on Lego Ideas. I'll tell you what, I might try and I'll bring it over here actually, because there's a lot of stuff behind it. There we go. So it's not quite finished, this one. This is the second version. And the idea with this was not to fit with any kind of existing train system that Lego do. It was to do it along the lines of the kind of Ultimate Collector Series models, like the Saturn V or something, as a key point of history, changing technology, because this is a really important piece of engineering. So it's on Lego Ideas. I put it on maybe 6 months ago. It had a really good start. Did an interview with Graham about that actually the other month.
Yeah, it's Blocks magazine.
Yeah, and it had a brilliant start. I got to 1,000 pretty quick, but as anyone who knows this process, you have to keep hammering it, and I've just not had the time. So it has really eased off. I think it's on about 1,400 at the moment, and honestly, I don't think it will get there. But I really enjoyed designing it. That's the water thing that goes on the back. I don't know someone will probably pick me up on the name, what they're all called. But and one of the problems with it is that, as someone mentioned in one of the earlier sessions, they won't make new parts for these if it did get through. And this one struggles because the front wheel isn't right. It's actually too small. And they should all be yellow technically. But yeah, I'm pleased with it.
Does anyone have any questions for Steve? If so, pop them in the chat now with your 3 question marks ahead of them. Do you have a particular favourite model, Steve, that is particularly holds a special place for you personally?
I think I like different ones for different reasons. So the Baltic that I showed you earlier, that's here, there's something about that when I started building that, I didn't know AFOL was a thing. I didn't know there was groups. I didn't know it was literally me. In fact, before that, when I designed my house model, I didn't even know about Bricklink, or I designed it totally in the Lego Designer software. And then partway through that process, I'll just show you the house actually. So this is that's my house model.
Oh wow!
So it's pretty much minifigure scale with all the interior rooms done.
Oh wow!
But like I say, I didn't know anything about. I didn't think I'd be able to afford to buy it. Afford to buy the bricks. So the whole thing was done in the Lego software. And I just and during that process started discovering that there were people who were building things out of Lego. So the house is definitely a favorite. The Baltic, though, was the start of it becoming a business. And I think there was something about setting a standard for myself with that model, because even at that point, I wasn't really looking what other people were doing. I just wanted to do it. And my perfectionist nature meant I wanted to do it at a certain level of detail. And whilst there's things I might have done differently now, it's a very fragile model. It came out really well. It's a very my mum used a word once, it was Legogenic, about things that lend themselves very well to be built out of Lego, and I use that quite a lot. The Baltic is very Legogenic. So that's definitely a favourite. And I don't know if anyone's seen some of the bigger ones. I've done the Bose Museum model, which I did a couple of years ago, which has got about 40,000 bricks in it. Again, very Legogenic. And the Annick Garden model, which was revealed to slightly less fanfare because of the pandemic last year, which has got about 100,000 pieces in it. But there's so many and the little ones I'm doing now, that Blackpool one is right up there for me. For some reason, I don't really know Blackpool very well.
William's got a question. Have you considered designing the rocket as she ran in normal service? He believes she was painted green.
Well, I haven't seen the green version. I know there was a version that was up here as part of the Great Exhibition in the North that was completely black, and I think it was the original one. And that's just the state it ended up in. This one is based on the one that's in the National Railway Museum in York. And there was just something about the colour scheme that really appealed to me. But I know there's lots of different versions, but I haven't actually seen that one.
And Richard says, when's the 1:1 scale rocket model coming?
I think I might be done with rockets. But actually, hold on. I have got another version. 2 seconds. So one of my new little skylines is going to be the York skyline. This is not a finished version, but it has got a little teeny tiny rocket there to represent the one that's on display, because the National Railway Museum is in York. So there's that version, there's this version, and there's my very large 1.6 meter one. But I think that's going to be it for rocket models. Unless someone did push me to do a full-sized one. Yeah. Yeah.
Carly asks if there's a specific building or skyline that you want to try building.
Well, the list of models that I want to do as little sets now is getting quite long. Manchester's on there. But I want to try and stick to the north. People have often asked me that, and I don't know if anyone knows the Sage in Gateshead, which is it's a music venue on the banks of the Tyne. And whenever someone asks that question, I think of that building, because it's possibly the hardest building you could possibly build out of Lego. It curves in many different directions. There's hardly a straight line on it. So I think if I was up for a challenge, it would be that. But yeah, I'm a big fan of the north. I'm not from the northeast of England. I moved up here 20 years ago, and I just love this part of the world. And so this places like Bamburgh Castle, I'd love to do a model of Bamburgh Castle, and some of the other landmarks. I've done quite a lot of old buildings now, so maybe a few newer ones as well. Yeah, and the other thing that's happened, I think, over the past 6 months or so, is it has moved a little bit away from just architecture for me. So some of the things I've done for client, here's one I've got on the go at the moment. Actually, I'll just show you this. This is a gift, very, very early stages.
Oh, wow.
Electric lightning, I think it's called. So the client, he sent me this. This is a metal version of it. He wants a Lego version of it as a gift. A lot of metallic silver on it. So one of the things that's changed for me is doing a few more things that are not architecture, but they're still the thing for me is recreating something real in Lego and getting as accurate as possible. So people say, "Oh, I thought that was the real thing." That's the ultimate compliment for me, as opposed to what Paul is doing, which is interesting, is there's a lot of stuff there that is completely made up, and I almost don't think I know where to start with that. There's an additional level of creativity there, which I'm not, other than perhaps some of the skylines with the arrangement of them. For me, it's, well, I know if it's right because it looks like the real thing. But so it's I think it will always be about recreating real life objects and buildings for me.
Richard asks if there's a type of project you hate doing.
He knows the answer to this, I think.
I had a feeling he might.
Anything that involves people, or he said he knows the answer, or recreation of, I don't know, dogs. So Richard we've worked together on some projects. He came, and when I had the Bowes Museum project on, which involved, as well as doing the big version of the museum, I had to do 15 or so objects from inside the museum as a little trail, not full size. They were quite small, but I had Richard come to the studio and he built some of them. And some of them one was like a painting of a dog that we tried to do as a 3D version, and a pink dress, and Richard did most of the work on a still life painting that had some pots in it and things, which was done brilliantly actually in the end. But anything, I'm not a fan of people and animals. I never was as a photographer. It was always about architecture. So anything sort of organic like that, I find doesn't. So I get inquiries from people saying, one of the weirdest ones I had was a full-sized model of Gordon Ramsay that I had an inquiry about once, which just didn't appeal to me at all. So I wouldn't even get involved. I wouldn't know where to start. So yeah, anything like that, I tend to avoid.
HK's got a really good question here. So as you didn't really spend long exploring Lego as a hobby before it became your job, do you feel like you missed out on just enjoying Lego without having to kind of plan in it bringing in income?
That is a brilliant question. I greatly regret, although there's nothing I can do about it, obviously, that I didn't carry on playing with Lego from when I was a kid. And what's weird is I was absolutely obsessed with it as a kid, but I don't ever remember my parents sort of saying, "Oh, why don't you look at a career in that?" It just didn't occur to me. But I did a similar thing with photography. So before I went into being a photographer, I was an economic consultant, and photography I got into as a hobby, and very quickly decided I wanted to do it as a job. But I got fed up with photography in the end a little bit. It became just a job. So my fear a little bit here is that in 10 years' time, will I have lost the passion a bit? But I certainly didn't lose the passion for it because it became a job. In fact, I find it still incredibly exciting because I just don't know how I could be so involved with it if it wasn't a full-time job. And yeah, I say it was quite quick from rediscovering it in 2012 to my first commission was probably 2 years later, but it was probably 4 or 5 years before it was a full-time job. I don't know. There's always a bit of a fear that something that is a passion that becomes a job, you lose that passion. But I think it hasn't happened so far, and I'm really excited about the projects that I'll get to do. I quite like working to a deadline and to a budget. That's part of the fun for me, almost.
Graham Carrick says, as you know, he loves your work. Do you take apart the models ever, or do they all remain built once you've finished them?
They've pretty much all remained built, mostly because they go to the client. So most of the ones I've done aren't here and the client keeps them. The exception to that is an exhibition I put together for the Great Exhibition of the North, which was held mostly in Newcastle in 2018. I put together an exhibition that charted the great things that had come from the North. There was 40 or 45 models, from the rocket to discovery of graphene, the Beatles and the Mr. Men, all sorts of real weird collection of stuff. And the deal there was that I had to keep it together for a couple of years after the exhibition in case it might tour or find another home.
Yeah.
But that's pretty much up now. So I have started recycling some of them. But there's very, very little else that I take apart. I'm just looking at an Angel of the North model I've got on my shelf that's fallen apart. You can't see it from there. That wasn't intentional. No, it needed all space together.
Would like a look at the Liver building up close, please.
Okay, yeah. So this was done for the Great Exhibition of the North as well. I wanted, whilst it was held in Newcastle, it was about the whole of the North. It's not the Liver building. It's the Port of Liverpool building, and I wish I'd done the Liver building. I wish I'd done the Liver building, because that is. Hold on, I'll just turn the light off. Because the Liver building, it turns out, is much more famous than this one. I should have done more research. Well, that's the Port of Liverpool building. And one thing, actually, That's
really nice.
One thing I like to do with architectural builds is put lights on. So I'm just going to pop you down for a minute. So that's it's a bit bright.
Oh wow!
That's with the lights on. I have got a Liverpool waterfront model that's got the 3 Graces on it. So that's got the Liver building on it. This is a first iteration. I'm probably going to release this one in a slightly different version soon. It's taken a lot of work. That's got the Albert Dock on it, and the 3 Graces and the Beatles statue, and the Museum of Liverpool, which is the silver shiny one. I'm just going to show you while I've got lights going on. So this is the inside. It's unbelievably messy of this mining institute building. And I'm going to pop you down there again. I'll show you this one with lights. So for me, this makes a massive difference. That's a bit bright there, but you can see around there with the lights on. So what I do for these, once you're around the back, I'll turn it off again. Hold on. So these are just these little LED strips that you can get.
Yeah.
And you'll notice tracing paper I've got behind the windows, which gives a really nice kind of diffusing effect for the lights, and it means you can't see all the total mess that's behind the scenes. Was that enough for the Port of Liverpool building?
I think we've got a good look at it, but if anyone wants to see it again, they can shout out in the chat. Oliver asks, is it sometimes hard to choose which landmarks and buildings to include in the skylines? And have you ever left something out because you couldn't get it quite right in micro scale?
Good question. It is difficult, and I think the Liverpool one I mentioned, I've got 2 Liverpool versions. I've got the one that's got the waterfront, where there's a lot of buildings there. It's kind of geographically correct, that model. They're all lined up. But the Newcastle Gateshead one isn't. They're all over the place. and deciding what to put in and what arrangement. I've had people commenting and say, "Oh, why have you got that there? It's not near that building." I've had to kind of explain that they're not supposed to be geographically correct. They're an interpretation of it, the different scales and all sorts. But the Newcastle one was particularly difficult because I know it so well, and there's loads more I wanted to put in: the Civic Centre, the castle, a couple more bridges. But that was an interesting one because I know the area. Places like Liverpool required more research, and Blackpool, and there's always stuff missing. So Blackpool, someone said there's another very famous roller coaster there called the Big Dipper, I think, that's different to the Big One, and that they would like to have seen that in there. But it's impossible to keep everybody happy. Ultimately,
make a choice at some point.
Yeah. So, but it is tricky. But normally you can Google, what the most famous landmarks are in a city, and it will give you a pretty good list. I suppose there is a little bit of, well, that one doesn't look very easy to do in microscale, or it's very similar to another one. So one of the things with the York model that I'm struggling with is there's a lot of old buildings in it that use tan. So it looks quite, compared to the Newcastle one, it looks quite samey.
Yeah.
So yeah, I quite like that process as well, of trying to work out what should go in and what, it's a conversation. And the other thing about them is when I first started doing them and releasing them, I kind of said to people, if you want to have a go at building this with the bits you've got and do your own versions, then great. And a couple of kids sent me through pictures of ones they'd tried to do where they didn't have the right pieces, and they're brilliant. Or if you don't like the angel, leave it off, put something else on. That's the thing about Lego. I'd love to see people doing that, putting their own stamp on them.
Thank you so much, Steve, for showing us all of the various things that you've got around your studio. That has been absolutely fascinating.
You're welcome. I hope I don't feel it was anywhere near as planned as the last one, but I hope it's given you, that's probably a good reflection of how I'm working at the moment. It's very grabbing half an hour here and a half a day there, and yeah, it's all over the place. But
everyone's sorting methods different, everyone's building methods different, everyone's presenting styles different. That's what makes it so fun. That's what means you can do 2 days of it without it all getting samey or feeling.
Yeah, true.
But no, thank you so much on behalf of everyone. And that is our last scheduled session for Bricks at Home 2021.
Thanks, Steve.
Want to give another shout out to Richard Carter, Kaz Mockett and Matt Bailey, who made this event happen and have given us an opportunity, even though we can't be together in person, to share the Lego creativity. So I imagine Richard will probably want to say some things to wrap everything up now. So I'll pass over to Richard and see if he's got any last messages that he wants to share.
Yes, thank you, Graham. So I think the first note I have is if everybody can unmute and give Graham a clap for presenting all weekend. I think we can agree it's preferable to me.
Amazing. Well done, Graham.
Thank you very much, Graham. You've been great all weekend, and we've seen some great models, and we've had some questions. Thanks also to Kaz from London AFOL's Blockhead UK. She's been really helpful getting things organised and coordinated with the London AFOL side of things. Matt Bailey as well, I've bounced many ideas off. Sadly, he's working this weekend, so he hasn't been able to attend. But I'll make him watch the videos. I'll sit there and watch him until he's finished them.
Meanie.
There is merchandise, like Graham has said. So the form for merchandise closes at about midnight on Tuesday night, if I remember to turn it off. So bricksathome.org/merchandise. There's t-shirts, event bricks, and custom minifigures. And what else have we got? You've been sent an email recently. There's a link to it with a feedback form. There's also, on this second part of the form, a chance to vote for the best mock of the show on the Saturday and the Sunday, so you can vote for your favorite models, and we'll sort a prize out for those. If you've won a prize from the activities over the weekend, please email secretary@brickalleylug.co.uk, and we'll sort those out. I think I've got a couple of addresses, but I'm missing others, so don't forget to do that if you're still watching. And the videos we've recorded most sessions, so videos for those will be on the Brick Alley Lego User Group YouTube channel in the next few weeks, when I get a chance to kind of crop them down and stick them up. So yeah, that's it. Thanks everybody for attending. Thank you, Steve and Paul, if Paul's still here, for discussing this session. I think it's been a good weekend, some really great models, and we will see you next time, whenever that is. We don't actually have a plan for another virtual show because hopefully we can go back to proper shows soon. But yeah, we'll see. We'll see what happens. Okay, thanks, guys.
Thanks, Richard.